Hey guys, back this time to give you a pick on Kansas versus Kansas State. Now, to our already subscribers, this may seem a bit like an encore because I did give you guys the Kansas State Kansas pick the first time these two played. It was Kansas State -1, and I gave you that, and Kansas State won pretty easily in their home gym. This game is Kansas -3.5, total 132.5. Let me just start by saying I'm not truly a blue-collar team bettor. You guys may have realized that if you're a new subscriber, check out some of the videos. You'll realize I don't really bet these big market teams. If anything, I look for favorable spots to fade them. So I'm always looking for valuable spots in any conference and all over the place. But here in this game in particular, I do believe we have an edge. So two decently sized market teams squaring off. Kansas State having one of their best years, that I can remember. Maybe thinking back to the Michael Beasley days. But for the most part, this Kansas State team has been very good. But I do believe there's a little bit of a different picture I can paint for you here. So, like I said, starting with Kansas State, coming off an absolute blowout win against Oklahoma State, right? What some consider to be a trap game, right? Game leading up, game right before the big road game against Kansas. You're going to drop an egg against Oklahoma State? No, they didn't. They played great defense. I think they won by over 40 points. Kansas State has only lost 2 of their last 13. And as mentioned, they're having one of the best seasons, in quite some time. And Kansas State always seems to give Kansas a bit of a tough ride. Whether it's in Kansas, whether it's in Kansas State, wherever the game is, Kansas State typically tends to play Kansas very hard. Now, what makes this Kansas State team different than years past is they play absolutely stifling defense. It doesn't really seem to matter whether they're at home, on the road. Their defense is legitimate, and they really slow the game down. I mean, there's a lot to them that's going to remind you of Virginia with how slow they play, that molasses pace, and just really good defense. They got really good length on that defense, and some really good studs as well. Now, when I take a look at this Kansas side, most people, at least these days, are talking this is not the Kansas of old, right? This could be the year that they don't win the Big 12, and those people might be right. But I will tell you, when people start to jump off the ship on teams, that's exactly when I want to jump on, right? Because the market has clearly made an adjustment for XYZ team. In this case, Kansas. Now, Kansas State sits atop the Big 12 because of their conference record, even though I don't even think they're arguably the best team in that conference. I think the only argument you could make would be Texas Tech or Kansas. Kansas State has had a very soft schedule, one of the softer schedules in the Big 12. Meanwhile, Kansas is actually number 1 in all of Division I basketball in strength of schedule. They've had the toughest, and they've had the number 3 non-conference highest strength of schedule. So clearly, Kansas has played a lot of teams. Don't be fooled by the extra loss they have versus Kansas State. I think Kansas has 7 losses. Kansas State has 6. Don't let that fool you either. Kansas is also 5-5 in their last 10. And I think this is really indicative on how young this team is. Those 5 losses were all on the road. This is a team that really is struggling on the road. And when you look at their team in the way they're built, they are a very young team. They're actually the 320th youngest team in Division I basketball. So what does that mean, right? It's tough to get young kids to play well consistently on the road. I mean, it just is what it is. History's shown us that. But at home, this team is a really well-oiled machine. This is typical Kansas at home. I mean, in years past, typical Kansas. They have not lost once at home, but I do believe everybody's creating this narrative. I don't know if it's because, they want to just talk about it, or they want to just, people just want this to be the year Kansas jumps off the ship. However, in this spot in particular, when you look at how these two teams are entering this game, KSU coming off their huge blowout against Oklahoma State. Kansas getting absolutely mollywopped by Texas Tech. Again, on the road, they blew out Texas Tech at home, but they get actually absolutely mollywopped against Texas Tech on the road. So you got two teams coming off inverse directions. And I do think that this creates the perfect drawbridge for myself to enter the Kansas Castle. And I do believe that this 3.5 number is a very solid number with Kansas. So, despite all of Kansas's flaws that they have, as I mentioned, they have not lost at home. Different animal, home versus road. This is one of the most distinguished home road teams in college basketball. They rank 15th in all of college basketball in home court advantage as per KenPom. This is a team that, as I mentioned, is just bred to win at home. And don't get it twisted, folks. Bill Self, his Kansas players, they're hearing it from the media, how this is not the Kansas team of old. This is a motivated team, and this is a huge win. If they win out these last four games, they have a few tough ones. One, they're going to be an underdog. I think it's at Oklahoma. But the others, they should be favored in, especially this one. Don't be fooled at all, or don't mislead yourself into thinking, this isn't the Kansas team that could win the Big 12. Don't ride them off. This is the perfect time to jump on the Kansas bandwagon. Everybody's off it, or at least a lot of people are. Let's grab 3.5 here with Kansas versus Kansas State. We're going to flip the script. I gave the video out a few weeks ago where it was Kansas State minus one in Kansas State's building. I played it in that spot because Kansas was not built for a road test like that. And that proved true. And I believe in this spot, Kansas is built for really pushing Kansas State to the limits here in their own gym, in their own building. They've beaten better teams than Kansas State in their gym this year. And they beat them pretty handedly. So, again, guys, it's going to be Kansas minus the 3.5 versus Kansas State. As far as where I think this line is going, I do believe overall you're going to get that blue blood public money on Kansas. I just don't know how much. As far as what people would consider sharp versus square money for this game, I usually like to break this game down, break these predictions down as well for the viewer. I do believe that people are going to say that there's might be some value with Kansas State because this is Kansas in a down year. But 3.5 is a soft number. I'd be shocked if this went down to 3. I'd expect this to go to 4, possibly even 4.5. Crazy as it might sound, maybe even 5 before close. Just because, again, I think you're going to get public money on Kansas, and I think you're going to get sharp money on Kansas at 3.5. And it's just going to be a matter of if people are going to domino effect and chase steam, trying to continue to bet Kansas at a worse number. But again, long short, Kansas minus 3.5 versus Kansas State, Big 12 matchup. I do believe this is the beginning of the Kansas run. To prove to people that the Big 12 is still their conference. I want to thank you guys for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, and comment below. I love responding to the comments. Give me your take on the game. Would love to chat about it. If you really think Kansas State's gonna win and cover, or maybe even if there's some value on that side, I'll discuss it with you as well. Want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch the video. I know we split the last two with Virginia and Syracuse. Syracuse blew that game late. But, they were a bit Jekyll and Hyde. It didn't surprise me there, but UVA did push through to cover. So we split them. But, again, looking forward to this pick here. And really like it. Really favorable number 3.5, so let's crush it. Thanks again, guys, for watching.